Namaskar. Today's speech is about the primitive or prehistoric origin of the Arab Israel crisis. We know the Arab Israel crisis has erupted to be more vigorous since the Second World War, but its origin goes back to millennia. The Arabs and the Jews, they belong, according to their claims, to the same ancestor, goes to Abraham, by whose name three religions are known in the world. The three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It is believed by the Jews that their forefathers or the originator of their line of human beings was Abraham. To the Muslim, Abraham is known as Ibrahim. So they call him as their originator. The Christians of Europe don't have that historical ground or even mythological ground to claim it to be Abrahamic in terms of biological origin. But the religion, of course, is Abrahamic as they trace the origin of the religion to Abraham. So it is again Abrahamic religion via Jesus Christ or through Jesus Christ, as Jesus Christ was a Jew. The important point is that it is, in fact, was a quarrel, a kind of enmity between two wives of Abraham. I'm not going to narrate the history of Abraham, his wives and his children, so many things, believable, doubtable. Only a credulous person having too much faith can, of course, accept it. But a rational human being, one who looks at anything else through rationality, scientific outlook, cannot accept it. Because Abraham had his wife Sara. Both of them were growing old. Abraham had become, of course, old. And he did not have any child. Growing old means not too much old, capable of producing children. At that time, Sara, his wife, out of a goodwill, suggested Abraham to marry her attendant Hagar. Hagar was basically an Egyptian lady. And Abraham at the time was living in the desert land, or say to the east of the desert of Iraq. Though in course of time he migrated to the part of Israel. The point is that as Sarah gave the suggestion, when wife gives suggestion to her husband to marry somebody other, a lady who was none other than her attendant. I don't use the word servant. She was young, Hagar. So Abraham married her. And out of that marriage was born a child, a boy named Ishmael. Then Ishmael grew up. When he was more or less young, then one thing happened. What? This Sara, one who was in fact incapable of giving birth to any kind of child, boy or girl, certainly got conceived. And she gave birth to one son named Isaac. As soon as Isaac was born, the value of Ishmael gradually got reduced to Sarah. Sarah began to consider this Ishmael rather an enemy of Isaac, Hagar as an enemy of herself. So she requested, or rather forced, Abraham to banish them. So they were banished. I am not going to give the details of this banishment, what kind of sufferings this lady Hagar suffered, what kind of suffering Ishmael suffered. Not all these things. Take it that ultimately this Ishmael settled in the land of the Arabs. Summarily, you can consider the part of where he got settled, that was a part of northern Arabia. Now afterwards, this Abraham with Sara, Isaac, and other members of the family, associates, a big team migrated to Israel. As they settled there, they considered that land as their own. So, the children of Isaac, in course of time, began to consider Israel as their fatherland. But the tragedy was that Abraham was gone, Isaac was gone, and their children began to live there, and children of children, this way, all the posterities, those who were born in posterior times, were living there. And for a long time there was no talk of Ishmael that much, though there is the history of Ishmael. Whether the entire history of Ishmael was true or concocted parts got into it, we are not sure of it. Because the entire thing seems to be a kind of construction. Question of belief and disbelief does not come there, specifically in case of historical studies and analysis. Whatever it was, it went on. But the problem is that the Jews in Israel had lots of sufferings to face and undergo in the long course of the history. They were banished, tortured, and often enslaved. The Egyptian Pharaoh enslaved them. The Sumerians and the Babylonians tortured them. The Sumerian and the Babylonian empires, they could not stand against them. The big jumbo army of the Sumerians, the jumbo army of the Babylonians, the Sumerians under Hammurabi and the Babylonians under Nebuchadnezzar unleashed reign of terror on the Jews. Then we come across of the Romans. When the whole land of Israel passed into the hands of the Romans did not have specific religion as such, mostly derived from the Greeks. The Roman gods and goddesses were derived from the Greeks. And wherever the Roman army used to go for a battle or a fight or to occupy a new land, if they would come across of a new god or goddess, even in the street, they would bring the statue to Rome. So it was in fact a promiscuous religion. Now, the Greeks were considered by the Christians pagans. The early Romans also were pagans before the Christianization of the Roman Empire. Now, the point is that the Romans did not accept the religion of the Jews. They tortured them. And in the early phase of Christianity, the Romans did not accept even the Christians. So the Jews and the Christians, Christian Jews, both were exclusive to the Romans, never inclusive. Now, time passed on. Peter, an apostle, a disciple of Jesus, went to Rome. He set up the St. Peter's Cathedral. Though he was caught and crucified there in Rome, along with 12 others in succession, crucified. But time came when the Roman Empire itself became Christians. The point is that before the Christianization of the Roman Empire, the two groups of the Jews, means the Judaic people, those who followed Judaism, and the Christians, Jews, all were more or less excluded, tortured, not given to government jobs, visas, facilities, all these things. Now another dichotomy. The Roman Empire became Christians, but the Jews did not show conflict. Now, during this long course of torture, tribulations, we find Jews migrated to different places. notwithstanding the fact that they too once were able to set up an empire. And in fact, their emperors, Solomon and David, were great people. The glorious reference of the Jews goes to Solomon, goes to David. I am not going to narrate the history of Solomon and David, but the point is that as time passed on, after the fall of the Roman Empire, there was born a man in Saudi Arabia. All know his name. He was Muhammad. Hazrat Muhammad. Hazrat Muhammad gave birth to what is known nowadays as Mohammedanism, otherwise Islam. Islam does not actually mean peace. Islam means total surrender to God. Anyway, whether the Muslims are really people just at the feet of Allah or not, that's a different thing. But the 5 principles of Islam, including the acceptance of that Allah is the only one God, La Allah illallah. That every Muslim has to pray namaz 5 times a day. Every Muslim has to go at least once for Hajj, means pilgrimage, to Mecca and Medina. Every Muslim has to observe fast during the month of Ramadan. Every Muslim has to help the poor. These 5 principles are there. But what is very, very important is that the Muslim thinks that Muhammad was the last of all prophets. He was a Nabi, messenger of God, to have received messages from Gabriel, the archangel of Allah or God. The messages or the writings of the Quran were in fact the messages messages are in fact, as they call it, messages of God given by given by Gabriel to Muhammad. So the messages of God can never be disbelieved. So the point is that as they believe it, so they stand by it. To what extent? They believe that as Muhammad was the last prophet, so what he said, as he got things from Allah through Gabriel, all the time Gabriel was an intermediary between Allah and Prophet Muhammad. One who does not believe, no question. But a Muslim has to believe it. Without total conviction and belief in it, conviction does not come, belief. Blind or rational, whatever it is, they have to believe it. If a Muslim does not believe in the Quran, in Hadith, in Sunnah, he is not a Muslim at all. He will never be considered as a Muslim. So the point is that to what extent a Muslim should and must try to preach the messages of Allah as given in the Quran to the last stage. What? If even necessary, should be done through jihad, religious war, no question of surrender, because God's message have to be carried out and throughout to all destinations of the world, to all kinds of people. What is that? The Christians brought the term heathens. Those who did not believe in Christianity called heathens. And here the Muslims brought the word kafir. Those who didn't believe in the Quran, in Muhammad, in all these things, hadith, sunnah, they are considered as kafir. So, haram, dar-ul harb, land controlled and ruled by the kafirs, darul harb. The target was to make these lands as Darul Islam. So, Muslims had conflict with any group of people. But the conflict became more and more vigorous, deeper, and sporadic as well as continuous with the Jews. So what happened? The Muslims developed big army. They occupied the whole of Saudi Arabia. All these things happened even during the time of Hazrat Muhammad. Nabi himself fought nearly 80 wars. After his demise, the 4 followers of Muhammad ruled this empire, and they are called as Rashidun, Caliphs. Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman and Ali. And afterwards, after Ali, I am not going to narrate the war of Karbala, this and that, but the point is that after Ali, the Uthmanis became more powerful. A vigorous army was built. They occupied the whole of North Africa up to Morocco. And it was during their time that from Morocco, the army went up to Spain and occupied it. From Spain, they wanted to occupy France, but it was Charles Martel of France able to defeat them in the Battle of Tours in the year 733. Otherwise, the whole of Europe would have become Muslims, Islamic. Now here this way, the eastern bank of the Roman Empire, that was Israel. And it was very easy that they occupied all these lands, even one day the whole of Turkey. They occupied it. Once they occupied it, of course, their demand and claim to the Jews now was either you become Muslims, you stay here, otherwise you see your own path. But what? Fight, conflict, it continued. Even during the time of Muhammad, there was fight between the Muslims and the Jews. And it was a foregone conclusion, the Jews were defeated. The Jews were defeated. I am not going to narrate that horrific story of battle between the Jews and the Muslims in Saudi Arabia itself. My point is to show this one only. The Arabs claim themselves to be children of Ishmael. That is, grandchildren or great, you can say, rather it is should be grandchildren of whom? Grandchildren of Hagar. On the other, the Jews, the grandchildren of Sara through Isaac. And here, from Hagar, the grandchildren of Sara, the Arabs, through Ishmael. So, the Arab-Israel crisis, in fact, not a crisis. It's a war, it's a vendetta. It will go on as long as they fail to achieve or arrive at a compromise. A compromise, an understanding, a realization, meeting up the scores of the past. Or in one sense, they have to ignore history. They have to consider themselves just as human beings. Neither group will do it. Neither group will do it. If the either group do it or does it, if the Jews do it, if the Arabs do it, so group wise, you can take it singular or plural, whatever. Not one Jew, so the Jews. They can do it. The Arabs can do it. But the point is that now the battle that is going on in Israel, Hamas, this and that, these people are not Arabs. Most of them were in fact, and most of them are in fact now converted Muslims. Their forefathers, most of them were Jews. Notwithstanding the fact that so many Turks, Syrians, and others also have entered Israel, the Muslims, they have made a conglomerations with the Jew Muslims. So this way it cannot be told properly that all the Muslims in Israel are of Judaic origin or Jew origin. But it is going on. The Jews were ousted first by the Romans. Then in course of time, since the birth of Islam and occupation of Israel by the Muslims tortured them. They took shelter to the eastern countries. Even they came to India. The Jews went to Russia. They went to different European countries. There too, as the Jews, the Christians tortured them. In the 13th century in Ireland, in one day, several thousands of Jews were killed. Mentality of the Europeans, you can understand very well that even a man like Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, in his in his dramas, we find in some cases he kept the villain a Jew, as a Jew. Shylock is a very important figure in Merchant of Venice. Why this mentality? Now, the Jews proved their capability even in Europe. The top thinkers, philosophers, scientists, Jews. Albert Einstein is Jew. Karl Marx is Jew. So this way, not only one, Sigmund Freud is Jew. And these three persons, specifically Albert Einstein and Sigmund Freud, had collaborations and correspondences between them. Anyway, the history how Israel was set up, it is known to all. The Basel Zionist Conference, Theodor Herzl, and the First World War, Balfour Declaration. The British government took the initiative. After the Second World War, as the area of Israel passed into the hands of the British, they could in fact declare the establishment of the State of Israel. It is not that right from the beginning the Jews in fact opposed the settlement of the Muslims in Israel. They wanted to live side by side. But it was the Muslims, they did not allow the Jews to come there. They put all the obstacles in their way. And the Arab nations got allied together in the name of Arab League. And the fight took place in the 1948. Just only with 1 lakh people, the Jews became victorious. What to do? All the countries surrounding Israel attacked Israel, but they were defeated. What to do? The children of Hagar suffered. Then again the children of Hagar suffered in 1956. Again the children of Hagar suffered in 1967. In all the wars they were defeated. Only in the war of 1971, 1974, I think. There are so many figures, means the Egyptians, presidents, Abdel Goyum Nasser, Sadat, this and that. I am not going to tell all about these things. But the point is that primitive history is peeping into it. Whether that was fact or not, nobody is going to bother about it. Jews consider themselves as children of Isaac, and the Arabs consider themselves as children of Ishmael. So the fight is going on. Who are the owners of this land, piece of land, Israel? But Abraham is not there, now settled. The quarrel between these two. Anyone nowadays becoming a Muslim, considering himself or herself as someone from Abraham. Take the case of Bangladeshi Muslims. As Sheikh Mujib Rahman was called the father of the nation, then the Maulanas there in Bangladesh nowadays say another thing. What is? In Bengali it is Jatir Pita Ibrahim Sheikh Mujib Ghoraddin. Jatir Pita Ibrahim Sheikh Mujib Ghoraddin. See, the Bangladeshi Muslims, they have forgotten that they are in fact totally related with the Indian people. The people of Bengal, converted Muslims they are. How many Mughals and how many Turks entered Bangladesh? Very few. Very few. And that purity of blood cannot be traced. Thousands and thousands of Muslims were, Hindus were, Buddhists were converted to Islam. So, is there any historical ground to claim that they are the children of Abraham? So it is going on. Realize history. Arab-Israel crisis can be solved only by the Muslims themselves, sitting together. Then the Jews have to give up something. They have already given it up. Because even in Israel, thousands of Muslims are living, no problem. Those who are living with them side by side, coexisting. But Hamas will not do it. So fight is going on. Now, if they think that the Muslims will not look upon the Jews as their enemies, rather as children of Isaac, and they, if they claim they are the children of Ishmael, so brothers, no problem. The importance of this speech is that only just considering the present situation, one cannot solve it. It will go on. History also should be solved. Vendetta should be solved. Only then may come the question of coexistence. The Muslims have to accept the Jews as human beings. They have the right to live there. The Jews were ousted from Israel. They have the right to come back. Who ousted them? So, I am not going to give any decision. It is free for all. Let the debate go on until or unless the issue is solved. Thank you.